every morning at exactly 5:45, before the sun rose over Maple Grove. An aging blue sedan could be found in the far corner of the grocery store parking lot. Most people never noticed it. The parking lot was empty at that hour. The streetlights were still glowing. The store employees hadn't arrived yet, and the man inside the car was grateful for that. His name was David Carter. At 48 years old, he had once lived a life that felt ordinary. A steady job, a small apartment, weekend barbecues with friends, bills paid on time. Nothing extravagant, nothing remarkable. But it was his life, and he had been proud of it. Then the company he worked for downsized. David wasn't worried at first. He had experience, good references, a strong work ethic. Surely he would find another job quickly. Weeks passed, then months. Interviews came and went. Promises never turned into offers. His savings slowly disappeared. The rent became impossible. One missed payment became two, and before long, David found himself carrying everything he owned into the trunk of his car. At first he thought it would be temporary, a few days, maybe a week, just until something worked out. But days became weeks, weeks became months, and the old sedan became his home. Every morning he woke up before sunrise. He folded the blanket he used at night, straightened his clothes, and tried to make himself look presentable before anyone arrived. The hardest part wasn't being uncomfortable. The hardest part was feeling invisible. Or worse, feeling seen for all the wrong reasons. David spent each day searching for work, libraries, job centers, online applications, anywhere that might offer a chance. Each evening he returned to the same parking lot, the same corner, the same uncertainty. And every day he walked into Maple Grove Market to buy the cheapest coffee on the menu. It became part of his new routine. A routine that helped him pretend his life was still normal. What David didn't know was that someone had begun noticing him. Not judging him, not avoiding him, simply noticing. Her name was Maria Gonzalez. She worked as a cashier at Maple Grove Market. Maria had worked there for nearly 12 years. She knew most customers by name. She remembered birthdays, favorite products, family stories. And she noticed patterns. David's pattern caught her attention. Every morning, same time, same coffee, same tired eyes, same worn jacket. One morning, after ringing up his coffee, Maria smiled. "Good morning, David." David looked surprised. "You remember my name?" Maria laughed softly. "It's literally on your loyalty card." For the first time in weeks, David smiled. A genuine smile. Small, but real. The next morning Maria greeted him again, and the morning after that. Soon they exchanged a few words each day. Nothing personal, nothing uncomfortable, just simple conversation. "How's your morning?" "Cold out there today. Looks like rain later." Little things, but little things mattered. Especially when someone felt alone. One particularly cold morning, Maria noticed David counting coins at the register. He quietly sat a breakfast sandwich he had taken and only purchased coffee. Maria didn't say anything. She completed the transaction as usual. But a few minutes later, she bought the sandwich herself. Then she caught up with him outside. I accidentally ordered an extra breakfast sandwich this morning. David immediately shook his head. No, I couldn't. You'd be helping me out. Maria smiled. I hate wasting food. David hesitated, then accepted it. Thank you. It was only a sandwich. But to David, it felt like something much larger. It felt like dignity. Because Maria never made him feel like a charity case. She simply treated him like a person. Days passed, then weeks. The small acts continued. A free cup of coffee here. An encouraging word there. Nothing dramatic. Nothing anyone else would notice. But David noticed. And slowly, those moments began carrying him through difficult days. One afternoon, Maria mentioned David's situation to her manager, not to embarrass him, not to gossip, simply because she cared. The manager listened carefully. Then he spoke to a regular customer named Robert. Robert owned a small printing company. A week later, Robert offered to help David update his resume. No charge, he insisted. Everyone needs a little help sometimes. David hadn't updated a resume since he was let go. Together they spent an afternoon reviewing his work history, organizing skills, improving formatting, preparing applications. For the first time in months, David felt hopeful. Soon another opportunity appeared. A woman from the local community center helped him prepare for interviews. A retired business owner offered advice. Someone donated professional clothing. He got free haircut. The support came from different directions. Each person doing something small. Each person believing someone else would handle the bigger problems. But together, those small acts became something powerful. A community. One evening, David sat in his car, looking at a notebook. Inside were all the names of people who had helped him. The list kept growing. Maria, Robert, Susan, Tom, Evelyn, Mark, and people he barely knew. All were people who expected nothing in return. David stared at the names for a long time, then quietly wiped away tears. Not because he was sad, because he had forgotten what kindness felt like. Months of struggle had convinced him that he was facing everything alone. The notebook reminded him he wasn't. Then one rainy Tuesday, everything changed. Maria approached him near the checkout lane. I heard something today. David looked up. What? The warehouse on Oak Street is hiring. David's heart sank immediately. He had heard that sentence before. Hundreds of times. You should apply here. Try this place. Maybe they'll call you. Most never did. Maria seemed to sense his hesitation. This one feels different. She handed him a flyer. They're looking for someone with logistics experience. David stared at the paper. That was exactly what he had done for nearly 20 years. For the first time in months, a job actually seemed possible. The interview was scheduled 3 days later. David arrived early, wearing donated clothes, carrying the resume Robert had helped create, repeating interview answers in his head. And he tried to ignore the fear. The manager interviewed him for nearly an hour. Questions, experience, problem solving, leadership. At the end, the manager smiled. You seem overqualified. David wasn't sure whether that was good or bad. Then the manager extended his hand. "When can you start?" For a moment David simply stared, certain he had misheard. "What?" The manager laughed. "The job is yours." David felt his eyes fill with tears. He quickly looked away, embarrassed. But after months of rejection, months of sleeping in his car, the emotion was impossible to hide. That evening he sat alone in the parking lot. The same parking lot that had become his home. And for the first time in nearly a year, he allowed himself to believe things might get better. The first paycheck arrived 2 weeks later. David held it for several minutes before depositing it, not because of the amount, because of what it represented. Stability, progress, possibility. Within 2 months he moved into a modest apartment. Nothing fancy, just a small one-bedroom place. But it had a bed, a kitchen, a shower, and a front door that locked. To most people, those things seem ordinary. To David, they felt extraordinary. The first night in his apartment, he lay awake for hours. Not because he couldn't sleep, because he couldn't stop smiling. Every morning, David returned to Maple Grove Market, buying his coffee. One morning he carried a small gift bag. Maria was working her usual register. She smiled when she saw him. "Well, look who's here for his coffee." David placed the bag on the counter. "What's this?" she asked. "A thank you." Maria shook her head immediately. "You don't owe me anything." "Actually," David said softly, "I owe you more than you know." Maria opened the bag. Inside was a framed photograph. It showed the grocery store parking lot at sunrise. The far corner where David's car had once been parked. Attached was a handwritten note. It read, "You didn't just help me survive. You helped me believe in myself again." Maria looked up, unable to speak. David smiled. "That first sandwich?" Maria nodded. "I remember." "It wasn't the sandwich." "What do you mean?" David looked around the store. At the customers, the employees, the familiar faces. It was knowing someone cared. For a moment neither spoke. Then Maria stepped around the register and hugged him. Nearby customers pretended not to watch, though several secretly wiped away tears. Because everyone understood something important. The community hadn't changed David's life through one grand gesture. There had been no miracle, no dramatic rescue. Just ordinary people choosing kindness. One small act at a time. And together, those small acts became powerful enough to change a life. Today, if you visit Maple Grove Market early in the morning, you might still see David there. Not because he has nowhere else to go, but because every morning he stops by before work. He buys coffee, greets friends, and every Friday morning he leaves a prepaid breakfast at the register. For someone who might need it. Because he never forgot what it felt like to receive kindness. And because he learned something worth sharing. Sometimes, the person who changes a life isn't a hero. Sometimes, it's simply the person who notices. The person who cares. The person who decides that a stranger's struggle matters. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything.